Hey guys, welcome back. So today I'm going to be showing you how to prevent your cheek makeup from getting super muddy. I've been getting comments from people like crazy recently asking me how I prevent my contour, bronzer, and blush from I guess mixing together and looking muddy. So that's what I'm gonna show you today, how I prevent that from happening. And I'm gonna be doing creams and also powders so that just in case you don't use one or maybe you use both, you can get an idea of how to do it. So I'm gonna start off with my cream side. I'm going to contour using Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now there are two very important things that you need to know how to do to prevent this from happening. Number one is you need to make sure that the color of your product is going to work with your skin tone. We've talked about skin tones on this channel. I know that it's really, really difficult. This can also take time to figure out. There were, products that I was using that were not as flattering as on my skin tone. I'm sure that there are products that I'm using right now that are not as flattering on my skin tone. The problem is when you run into all three. If we're talking contour, bronzer, and blush, if all three of those are very jarring on your skin tone, then you're gonna get muddiness just because it's not going to look correct. It's not gonna look right on your skin. So number one is obviously going to be finding those colors that work well for your skin. Number two is how you apply them. If you know me, then you know I like light layers. I typically like to layer a really, really light layer of cream products with a really, really light layer of powder products on top. I don't do it every single time, but it's kind of what I prefer. So the first step in application is to not just to draw your product on. A lot of people, do this for like aesthetics or whatever. I used to do it just because it felt easier, but I actually think that the application is much better if you pick it up with your brush. This, if you're new, is a brush that I will be coming out with later on, so I cannot link it. A lot of people ask about it. So I'm just going to gently pick up the product, just like that. And then I'm going to hold my brush back far, so I'm not rubbing against my skin. A lot of people said that their product can end up looking really muddy with a brush, especially if they're swiping. You don't necessarily have to swipe. You can kind of just bounce it against your skin. So I'm not swiping. I mean, sometimes I do, because my foundation doesn't really move around too much, but if you have that problem, just this. It's literally if I slow it down, it's like that. I'm just barely pressing it against my cheek. And I'm blending it upward, so I'm just kind of doing it in that motion. So I like to start off with my contour because I like to kind of create the bones of the face, starting from the bones of the face. And if you ever get to the point where okay, that looks like there's a decent amount of product, I'm just gonna wipe my brush off. I have this little Sigma switch I've talked about a little bit. It's just a little rubber pad thing with textures on it, and you can just wipe your brush against it and it removes the products. You can switch between shades. But that's really helpful also if your makeup ends up looking muddy. So I'm just wiping that off, and now I can kind of go in and blend what I already have so that I'm not applying too much. So you can see I applied the majority of the product right under the cheekbone, kind of right there, just cupping it a little bit. And now I'm going in with this clean, or sort of clean brush and just blending around the edges. So that was just my contour. That's just okay, I have a little bit of definition on my cheeks. So I'm gonna do the exact same thing on the other side, but with powder. So I'm using another brush, but one that I only use with powders. For my contour palette, I'm just gonna be using this one from Etude that I got when I was in Japan. I'm gonna use this color right here. So, this is hard to swatch because it's so finely milled. I'm trying to give you swatches to compare. Okay, so if you compare, you can obviously, this is a thick swatch of Anastasia, but you can see that they're different. They're not exactly the same. For my skin tone, I actually think that this color is probably best, but I often use this for creams. So it's not that you have to get the exact perfect color for your skin. It's just that they need to be as close as possible. I'm gonna forget that this is on the back of my hand. I'm gonna get it all over my face or something. Powder, always tap off my brush. Now this is a lighter formula. It's a little bit, obviously the color's a little bit lighter. It's a powder, it's very finely milled. But you can also do kind of the padding motion. But it's basically the same steps. So the first step is just to kind of like, all right, we're doing our contour, we're creating our shape. We're just gonna place it right where it needs to be. Next step is going to be bronzer. Now, if you don't contour, you can just obviously go into your bronzer first. The way that I like to use bronzer is, okay, so we've used a cooler toned shade to carve out our skull, cheekbone, skeleton? I was like, what word do I want to use? Our actual like skeletal structure. So what's going on underneath all the skin and stuff. Now bronzer is typically used to like, obviously make you look bronze, like bring a little bit of color back to the face, a little bit of light back to the face. So the way that I like to kind of think of how I'm placing these different products down is contour is kind of like barely under the cheekbone. You're kind of like blending up. Then bronzer is just above that, maybe up onto the temple a little bit, like that. And then think Neapolitan ice cream. Oh wait, but one of them is vanilla, isn't it? Whatever, don't think Neapolitan ice cream. Is it Neapolitan? Doesn't matter. Anyway, bronzer is like a little bit up here, and then blush is like just above that. Okay, so that's kind of like the motion that we're going in. But you wanna make sure that the transition between those products is nice and seamless. So I'm gonna grab my, which one's powder? This one's powder. I'm gonna grab my brush again. I'm using Rare Beauty Power Boost bronzer stick, which, if I'm honest, isn't the most perfect bronzer shade for me, but I wear it pretty often. It works nicely. It's like a relatively, it's like warm, but like slightly more on the neutral side. So I'm gonna do the same thing. I'm just gonna pick up a little bit using the brush. And so I'm going to start it like just above where I place that contour. So I'm kind of layering just over the contour, but bringing it up a little bit. Now I'm turning my brush. I'm gonna blend that up into my hairline, which like whatever, I really need to get these roots done. Onto the cheek a little bit, bringing a little bit of color back to the face. So I'm kind of layering it just gently over that contour slightly, but down here it's staying cool toned. I'm just wiping that off so I can do a little bit more blending. So then once I have the product down exactly where I want it, I can kind of go in and like blend around the edges, make sure that things are soft. Okay, so you can obviously see that I'm wearing makeup, but it's very lightweight. It's not like super duper heavy. The colors are blending really nicely. You can still see that cool tone right at my cheekbone, or right at the like hollow of my cheekbone. And then we're starting to create that spherical shape. If you look at a sphere and you look at the shadows of it, it's like you're going contour, bronzer, blush, highlight. You know what I mean? So for my bronzer over here, and I think they're discontinuing it, and I'm gonna cry. This is NARS San Juan bronzer. I've been like trying to link it for people and I haven't been able to find links, and I'm gonna get upset. Everybody loves Laguna, but this is the one that works best for my skin tone. It's just like so nice and warm. So anyway, same brush, just wiped it off on my switch. Gonna pick up some bronzer, tap it off, and it's the exact same theory here. I will say that when I apply my powder, I'm using a slightly lighter hand. And I don't really know why. So same thing, building this up. It's just above. I'm patting, because I didn't set with a powder, which maybe I should have, I don't know. Slightly different technique here. Oh, so soft, so pretty. Up onto the cheek a little bit. So again, this area here is kind of the focus, and then blending up. I'd already bronzed my forehead, so just kind of like meeting this area. Okay, see? So same thing. Nice, like you can see that shadow that we created, but now we're starting to like blend up over the cheek, creating that shape to the cheek. Blush. Do I have any blushes that are like the same color? Cream and whatever. That's actually, that works. Okay, so for the cream side, for my blush, I'm going to use Makeup by Mario. I've been obsessed with this blush. It's so nice. This is the Soft Pop Plumping Blush Veil in Barely Blushing. Gorgeous color. So I guess I am gonna use a brush. Same brush, wiped it off. I'm gonna do the exact same thing. Just going to pick it up. This is, I actually typically apply this blush with a sponge, which I kind of like, but yeah, you can apply it with a brush. So now I'm just gonna go just above. So I'm kind of starting, like, if I turn my head like this, at the height of my cheekbone. So it's just very gradual increments. I was gonna say increments as we go up. And then I'm gonna do the same thing. Once I have it focused in the area that I want, I'm just gonna lightly blend underneath my eye, bring it up here a little bit. So I'm just kind of like slowly spreading the products out. Can you see how seamless that cheek looks? So we have like that really nice definition of the cheek with the contour, and then you can't even really see a distinction between the bronzer and the blush. Like they just kind of like become one, but you see a little bit of that warmth that blends up to the temple, and then that blush just sits like really, really pretty. It kind of looks like that blush just kind of like melts everything together, you know? Not to toot my own horn, but cheeks looking good, cheeks looking good, you know what I mean? For the other side, same situation, but I'm gonna be using, this is like the closest powder blush that I could find. This is a Berry Sum. This is from a Korean brand, Berry Sum, maybe? Berry Sum? I can't remember. This is a blush that I also got in Japan. So powder brush, and the placement is the same. You know, start with a light hand, kind of bouncing it against my skin. So we're obviously all creams over here, so we're a little bit more dewy. But as I turn, you can kind of see we got the exact same situation going on, just a little bit more matte. So that blush really just kind of like melted everything together. And now knowing my process, you can probably see a little bit of those distinctions between like the shape, the warmth, and then the blush. And my cheek looks super smooth. It doesn't look muddy. The colors don't look muddy. The application doesn't look muddy at all. All right, guys, I just wanted to give you a deep zoom. Please don't judge my under eyes. I tried something different, which is always what I do when I film. I love to try something different when I need to look good. But yeah, thoughts? What do you think? Which side do you prefer? I mean, I should probably set my T-zone over here a little bit, but whatever. All right, guys, I hope that was helpful. Please let me know if it was or was not. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel if it was. What? You don't have to necessarily subscribe if this video was helpful. Subscribe, just subscribe. Give it a thumbs up if it was helpful, and leave me a comment if you have any questions. That makes sense, right? All those things help me out, even though, you know, they feel annoying to you. Or probably. But give this a shot and it should help a little bit at least. Let me know what you want to see next. If there's any other like things, application problems that you're having, happy to film that. And yeah, I guess I'll see you in the next one, dude. Bye.